Arjun Appadurai's stance on globalization is not one of blind optimism, as he claims to be deeply ambivalent about prognosis. He does not share the same enthusiasm as multinational corporations, seeking to expand their markets and impose cultural homogenization. Instead, his optimism stems from a different perspective. He understands that globalization won't unfold exactly as multinational companies envision. He emphasizes that globalization is a complex and uneven historical process, and, paradoxically, it also has localizing effects on different societies as they appropriate modernity materials in their own ways. Appadurai highlights that the current moment of globalization differs qualitatively from historical ruptures associated with modernity. Media and migration are two crucial interconnected aspects of this contemporary process. Over the past 2 decades, these elements have become massively globalized, extending across vast and irregular transnational landscapes. Media plays a pivotal role in transforming everyday discourse and offering resources for individuals to experiment with their identities and self-construction. Contrary to the notion that electronic media numb the masses, Appadurai argues that consumption of mass media sparks resistance, irony, selectivity, and agency among people worldwide. Migration, too, has undergone a transformation, with mass migration now accompanied by the rapid flow of mass-mediated images, scripts, and sensations. This results in encounters between moving images and deterritorialized viewers, as seen, for example, when Pakistani cab drivers in Chicago listen to sermons recorded in mosques in Pakistan. As a consequence of these processes, ordinary people have begun to engage their imaginations actively in their everyday lives. Appadurai illustrates this by evoking the Australasia Cricket Cup in Sharjah, where multiple elements converged in a moment of tension. These include the patronage of oil money, a diverse audience of Indian and Pakistani migrant workers, along with celebrities from the subcontinent, multinational companies' advertising revenue, and a television viewership in the millions. All of this unfolds against the backdrop of national rivalries and the subcontinent's bloody history being played out on the cricket pitch. Arjun Appadurai's perspective on the world, characterized by the dominance of modernity, acknowledges a critical break from various pasts. He challenges the idea that nation-states will be the long-term arbiters of the relationship between globality and modernity, pointing to threats to state sovereignty and legitimacy from various sources like border conflicts, culture clashes, economic instability, large immigrant populations, and capital flight. Regarding the apparent resurgence of nationalism, particularly in Eastern Europe, Appadurai refers to it as the Bosnia fallacy. He argues that the aspirations expressed through nationalism are more about self-determination than territorial sovereignty. In a world where people are on the move and connected through translocal solidarities and post-national identities, the yearning for self-determination goes beyond traditional notions of territorial boundaries. Appadurai's work offers a nuanced and necessary complication of the simplistic views often associated with globalization, which are either seen as unbridled freedom through the market or oppressive homogenization. However, some critics find his overwhelming optimism troubling, as it might underestimate the formidable global forces working against fair access to resources and cultural autonomy. Appadurai's exploration of post-national forces and solidarities is intriguing, but some argue that he places diverse identities, movements, and organizations on par without adequately considering their potential impact. The concern lies in the varying degrees of power and influence these forces wield, where some might reinforce diversity, while others could restrict it. Furthermore, while Appadurai celebrates the agency and pleasure derived from consumption, critics urge him to consider the unequal links between global capital and local markets, which contribute to the proliferation of certain products in specific regions. In the context of globalization, national boundaries can both solidify and be challenged simultaneously, leaving groups deemed unfavorable to the market increasingly vulnerable. This tension is evident in the South, where nation-states can be seen as protectors of indigenous rights against global capital in some cases, e.g., intellectual property rights, while simultaneously suppressing indigenous groups in favor of global capital.